Recording this computer. And Rich, I'll be coming to you for the number. Welcome everybody to our friendly community live FLT call in September. This is FLT call number.
I think it's 80.
I thought it was 81.
Oh.
Around that.
It wasn't 80 in the live one, was it? So what was it?
I don't know. Richard's usually pretty spot on these things. I do feel for the last 5 calls, I haven't been fully aware of what the number is, admittedly on it. But nonetheless, regardless of the number, it doesn't change the fact that we welcome you all to this call. Me and Richard began all of these calls a couple of years ago on the pretense that we believe the world is going through a huge shift. I don't see that from a bad point of view. The world goes through huge shifts in society every decade and every half a century and every century and so on and so forth. But it's the first one in at least our lifetime that we are present for. And a large part of that was around crypto. As that was coming in, a lot of industries have been shaken, and finance was one of the last ones that was and still is being shaken. So with our background around finance and tech, and then we've together been in crypto for 12, 13 years, something like that. We really wanted to kind of start a conversation around all of this because we believe it's the greatest transference of wealth we've ever seen. And now it materializes from our point of view, also power, importance, lots of other factors. And we wanted to have a space where we can discuss this. Crypto became the big thing that we discussed because it underpins everything, but we've kind of gone full circle back around to where we began, and FLT now, we're re-picking up the whole aspect of sense making, because if we can't make sense of the information around us and the decisions we have to make, then we can't take any actions upon that. So financial sovereignty is this golden thread that runs through the FLT community, the FLT programs, the courses that we've made, and at its core, the more sovereign we can be as human beings, it is our belief that we'll yield a better society. So with that said, we kind of have a general theme. Is people hearing me okay? I'm getting a bit of feedback. Am I good?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So with our general theme, kind of loosely for this call, we do want to open it up. It's only going to be an hour's call. It's the first time we've done an hour's call, so I do want to get into it. But the theme, what we kind of wanted to bring up was, and I want to frame this so it's not coming from a place of fear or negativity or anything like that. It's around change. There is a lot of noise of looming change, particularly the minute around finances. And if we look at disruption, whilst finance has had some disruption with crypto and DeFi, it still largely hasn't changed, which would lead one to suggest that it's due a large change. And the beginnings of the FLT Kickstarter sovereignty program, the foundation parts of the 9 steps, the first 3, are all around, well, foundation. You know, we can't build something unless we have a solid foundation. So the theme we want to pick up on is, you know, what are you doing? And it's the collective royal you, we, everybody, whether you're on this call live, whether you're watching it back, what are the things that you can do? Not all of us are able to do the same things other people can, but we can all do something to just, it might be to protect ourselves. It might be more opportunity to grow. It might be about family, friends, who knows? But we covered it towards the end of the first live FLT call we had a couple of weeks ago, which is this idea of community and the people that you know, what you can do to safeguard yourself. And we kind of want to just carry that on a little bit and see what may have came out from the last call, what people are doing. So that's the loose framing of everything. I want to give a welcome to Leone as well. I don't think we've had Leone on a call before. Hi, Leone. You can obviously hear me okay. Would you care to just unmute yourself, and if you're comfortable enough, to just share where you're at on your crypto financial journey, just so we can place you in some arbitrary scale of things?
So I've been studying crypto charts for about 2 years, and I made some money when Bitcoin and Ethereum went down a year ago. Mm-hmm. And then I invested in Hyper. Mm-hmm. And I don't know if you guys know about Hyper.
Very well.
Okay. And then I'm in something else called Novatech, but I'm not majorly or anything. I just like learning, and I'm an Aquarius, so it's ruled by tech and cryptos. That's kind of goes with my personality, so I like researching it.
I like the way that
And
I was going to say, I like the way you said you made money when Bitcoin and Ethereum went down.
Yeah.
Tell me something straight away.
Yeah, I love it when it goes down because then I can buy more.
Right.
excellent.
I thought you meant
And
it on.
as an Aquarian as well, you're also rebellious, is that right?
Yeah, I love risks.
Fantastic. Okay. You love risks. That's funny. My other two Aquarius friends that are rebellious are actually anti-risk, but nonetheless, they're very disestablishmentarianists.
Yeah. And
Super.
yeah, I live on a farm in Cheshire, and lovely Alan introduced me to this group, so I just thought I'll listen while I'm cooking.
Cool. Well, you carry on cooking. It's wonderful to have you with you. We are going to free flow this. So, well, actually, whilst you're on, Leonie, do you have any questions, topics, thoughts, anything that's been mulling around? When we used to do the FLT calls, everyone just kind of chucked things in a pot, and then we fleshed out from there something. So is there anything that's on your mind in particular that you'd love to
Not
hear
at the
about?
moment. I just want to listen, and then maybe I'll have questions.
Super. All right. Well, welcome. Thank you very much. Enjoy your cooking. James, I'm going to come to you, sir. Super quick. Your first time on a call, although I feel like I already know you quite well from the various groups we share. Did you want to just share, because Richard might not know you as much, where you're at in your crypto journey, and if you've got any things that are present in your mind that you'd love to share or discuss?
Hello everyone, my name's James. My crypto journey started probably about 2 years ago, 18 months ago. Got introduced to trading groups and the likes, ended up joining some sort of scheme that didn't really take off. And from there, I've just sort of got involved in circles to do with crypto and research. And to be honest, I'm not involved in a lot of things. I'm very fortunate to be involved in one that you know of. But beyond that, that's just sort of opened my doors. And I'm on the cusp of trying to look into DeFi and all those kind of things, but just a bit wary, non-committal at the moment. Once you get burnt, your hands are a bit sore. So I'm doing lots of research and finding my feet. I'm very curious about it all, but very reserved at the same time.
And within the DeFi space, which aspect of DeFi is piquing your interest the most?
Staking, yielding, looking in, minting NFTs, those kind of things. I'm sort of at that stage of your courses at the moment, but I'm also involved with a couple of other groups which have some good information in there as well. So, DeFi Llama, those kind of things.
Sorry, I was muted there. Yeah, no, that makes perfect sense. That's cool. It just helps us understand, because obviously DeFi, it's like saying dance music. It covers.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, sorry about that.
Everything. No, it's cool. It's a good word it moves us away from TradFi, but it's just such a big area. It's just nice to understand where you're thinking about. So the things you mentioned there, more than anything, then you're looking at the lesser risk part of DeFi. Is that right?
Yes. Yeah, I suppose so. Yeah, it's sort of a second, third stage down.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know. I'm not adverse to it. Well, I've just contradicted myself. I've been burned, but I'm not. Usually,
it's not put you off.
It's not put me off. No, I'm just trying to box more clever.
I understand that. That's good. If at first you don't succeed, try again. Just hopefully with a greater thought. Okay, cool. Well, James, it's really good to have you on the call as well. And finally, nice to put a
do you have any questions at the moment, James, as well, I'd like just to bring up, or?
Not initially, no. I've just come to scope it out. I put a question in about sort of looking at different levels of versatile storage for crypto. But I guess the obvious answer is your ledger, I suppose.
Yeah, well, we'll pull that up. I wanted to make sure I cover everyone else first, but
absolutely. Yeah, no,
it really is going
to lingering around in my mind. But initially, no, not really. As I say, I'm just absorbing.
Cool. Well, thank you very much for that, James. All right. Super. So it's really good as well. All the other guys that are on here, Rod, Jack, Angela, it's really, and Paul and Alan. It's nice to see you guys again on here because they all attended the live meetup we did. So it's nice to start to feel more community based as well. It's nice to have Ray here as well. I'm not seeing you on here for a little bit. Are there any of you guys that are currently on that you've got anything that is present within your field that you'd love to chuck in the mix for us to discuss together whilst we're on this call? Rod?
Yes, I think Jack had his hand up first, actually, Dan.
Oh,
You're
sorry.
muted now.
Yeah, okay. Well, just not so much a question, but more of what's vexing me at the moment is regulation, especially what's coming out of the States. And I'm worried that there's potentially it could kill the whole crypto horse, animal, whatever. So regulation is worrying me.
Can you elaborate on which aspect of regulation is making you think the most?
Well, the SEC declaring certain things as securities when they probably aren't, and I'm watching things that that central banks and world banks and things are doing, and basically that the traditional finance is trying to do its best to either capture or stymie crypto. So this is what I'm interested in, because I think that there's a lot of power and a lot of money.
Cool. And your real fear then is what will be left of the and you haven't said this, but I'm trying to paraphrase it out of you. What will be left of the crypto that you know of today once this regulation comes into force?
If any.
If any. Okay, cool. I can understand that, and I can understand that fear. Cool. Thanks very much for that, Rod. Jack?
Hey guys, yeah. My question is at the moment, because I wanted to ask, with like the euro and the dollar basically on par with each other for one, has that any effect on other investors or within the crypto space as to buying or holding or any fluctuations caused by it?
That's a good question. I can certainly say recently I've reaped the benefit of that, but that's because I'm in Europe and I'm earning in America. But I can understand the question there, definitely. Okay, cool. And Paul, Alan, Ray, Angela, anything else? Or are you just receiving today? I'll take that.
Hi, everybody. I'm just
Ray?
here to learn and absorb.
No worries.
Yeah, I'm just happy to listen as well. Thank you. Thank you.
Super duper. And Paul?
Yeah, just here to take in the wisdom.
All right, then. Well, let's rock onto it. So we've got about 40 minutes. See if we can fly through some of this stuff. I do also want to ask you all one question, not to answer now necessarily, but it is one question around reserves. So some of you may already have a load in reserves, some might be fully invested, but at some point, if you're comfortable, doesn't mean you've got to say how much you have in reserves, but it's this idea of the basics of financial sovereignty means that, if push came to shove and stuff occurs, what do you have at your disposal to live on? There's that old image where someone's investing in moonshot coins and they've got 1 million in assets and they're sat in a spaceman suit on a mattress on a floor eating a piece of pizza, meaning they've got no money to live. All their money's in crypto. So it's one of these things where we want to make sure from a safety perspective that everyone is thinking about this sort of stuff, because it's the sort of stuff that we sit on top of as a foundational level. So I want to come back to that, but first let's get into some of these bits and bats of things. I think from do we just take them in that order, Richard? Storage regulation and
sure.
Money?
Yep,
Or maybe
start.
do regulation last, actually.
Well, I was going to say, I mean, you could talk about regulation I don't think we can go too deep into it just purely because we haven't got time. But I think in the context of the general space and what it could mean, I think it's more, to me, the whole regulation thing is more in the context of the fact that of everything that's going on a macro level at the moment. So absolutely everything from recession to war to inflation, it's just part of the overall picture, I think, in terms of a financial shift that's happening. and regulation, I think, plays a part in that. So perhaps we could just, we could maybe just talk about it in the context of the wider shift, but then kind of what it means for us as individuals and what we can potentially, and with positivity, do something about it in order to prepare for it, I guess.
Well, I might as well carry on going into it then. So I will say as a disclaimer, I am about 2 weeks out of the loop of maybe even 3 weeks of any. Oh, my internet's unstable. Am I still good?
You okay? Yeah, you came back, man.
I'm about three weeks out with everything that's been happening for me since I've been on this little hiatus back into Europe. So, and 3 weeks with regulation of crypto is actually a long time. So the last that I was fully aware of things, I know the SEC released a fairly extensive document, and I've even named a handful of crypto coins that they've determined. They haven't said they're securities, but they think they're securities. I'm not even privy to what those were. So I wondered if Rod, have you seen any reports? I know that Guy did one from Coin Bureau where he kind of went through it quite extensively. I don't know what you've looked at, but do you know what the tokens were that they said were looking to be examples of securities?
Yeah, that's put me on the spot. I should know because I did watch the Coin Bureau vids, but I can't remember off the top of my head. I've got it written down somewhere. There were about 7 or 8.
Yeah,
it's no small number.
They're not like big coins. I think they've kind of plucked them out of the air in order to kind of send a warning shot, basically, so people can kind of look at
I've got them here.
How they're set up and what they are, basically.
Yeah, AMP. I mean, I have. In fact, I have looked at this because the only ones I knew were Rare Governance and Rally, and I'd heard of AMP. The rest of them I wasn't as familiar with. So I think I've read something. There's a few different ways you can look at this regulation that's coming, and this all depends, loosely, in my opinion, on what your worldview is in general. And for me, I always try and take this kind of logical gut level approach. It has to just make sense, whilst at the same time having some facts around it. And the thing that I read was a guy, and I spent ages trying to find the person's name again, and I can't, and I want to find it. He was a Wall Street banker. He's either a Wall Street banker. He was somebody that had limitations imposed upon him about what you're allowed to buy because of insider trading. So basically this person wasn't able to. And when they left, they did an interview, or they were speaking to somebody on a small time sort of podcasting. And he talked about how banks and financial institutions have known that obviously crypto has been coming around for years. They've seen the weight of people getting into it. And remember that the number of people and the money that's in crypto is still so tiny. When we're in this world, we think it's huge. The reality is we are tiny little minnows in a massive sea of finance. So, and he said that the reason for what's occurring behind the scenes is all of these institutions basically just getting into place. That the collective there for people that ultimately large institutions that determine what's going to make it out there, put a lot of the blockers on, a lot of the brakes on, a lot of the talking about regulation and scaremongering people because of all the positioning that's occurring, and because banks have been in this place of power for a long time, and that's not going to necessarily change. So this person was saying that now that they're out, they can invest in more things. They talked about some of the things that they were buying. I know that Ripple and XRP was talked about that quite a lot by that person. I'm not promoting that in any way, shape, or form, just sharing it. And so and so that makes logical sense to me. And I'm not pro bank at all. I'm anti-bank, but nonetheless, I also the other week when I saw this economic anthropologist, and he talked about like we can be, flying the flag and anti-bank and all of these alternative positive ways of living and working, he said, but they're not going to suddenly disappear. And so he said the best thing we can do is find out how do you work with these things, because crypto can be an answer for things and blockchain can be an answer, but isn't necessarily the answer. And that's not necessarily what I want to hear. It might not be what you want to hear, but it logically makes sense to me that there will be huge crackdowns and that there will be more regulation. But, and this is my answer to you, Rod, because I know that I know a little bit of where you sit with some of these things and from your question. At the same time, you can't stop Bitcoin. Like, you can regulate it and you can make it illegal and everything, just like you can make drugs illegal and all the other things that are illegal that are in society, but they'll sit in different tiers. And that's why at the minute, I think it'll take a lot of work and effort I don't for a single moment think Bitcoin will suddenly become the world store of value. I can't see how or why powers that be would allow that. So for me, it's about finding how these regulations as they come in, making sure you're safeguarded, not being in things that are don't put all your money into Monero, for example. And I love Monero and I have money in it, only to find out that it's so heavily regulated that it survives, but it survives at a much lower price point. I've talked for a little bit there. I'd love to get Rich's view on that and then bring it back to Rod, if you don't mind sharing. But we're not going to get rid of regulation, but because crypto and blockchain is a piece of code, I don't think they'll ever fully stop it. Rich, you want to put any 2 pence on stuff?
I think is that. Yeah, there's that. Can you hear me? Yeah. There's that saying, isn't there? Watch what they do, not what they say. And in terms of banks, institutions, members of the SEC, maybe not the SEC themselves, are if they're invested in big investment firms and equity, big equity firms and whatnot, they seem to be still preparing one way or another to invest into the crypto space. What do they want to do? What do they want to do when they invest in that crypto space? They want to buy at the best possible price they can. Another famous saying is never let a good crisis go. So if there's a crisis, then whatever happens and for whatever reason it happens, if a big crash does happen, then people want to be able to be in a position to take advantage of that crisis. So I think the potentially is, and it's happened for centuries, isn't a new thing. Markets are manipulated. So if the market's manipulated, you just go, well, why are the markets manipulated? And I think that's more the reason for kind of the big noise and the FUD that's coming out about regulation at the moment. Things are going to get more regulated. There's no two ways about it. But I kind of feel where we are in the cycle of things at the moment, even just in the crypto space, we would be in the space of kind of manipulation where they're trying to move things around. You add everything else that's going in, recession is here, inflation is here, war is here, all these different things just add all to the noise of where we are with things that kind of really exacerbate the thing. And it makes it really confusing and worrying for people. But I think that what Daniel said and what me and him have had private conversations ourselves, it's like, okay, the opportunity really is to think, well, what do I really believe in? And do I really believe in Bitcoin as a future? I think I said at the live meetup, it's like, is it a store of value, or is it peer-to-peer cash, which is what it was originally supposed to be, or is it both? Can it be both? Is it waiting for some sort of like event to kind of flip it one way or the other? I don't know. But one thing I do know is that if Bitcoin crashes and the crypto market crashes, all these investors and all the people that have run the SEC will be the ones that are buying into different spaces. That's what I personally think. So I can't think, something, it's going to get tightened up. And if you talk about from the central bank, space that you mentioned there, Rod, as well, do they want stable coins to exist? I don't know. Ask which stable coins may be integrated into a central bank currency. I don't know. I just found out today, and apparently it's been news for a week, that Binance is delisting USDC. I was like, holy shit, what's that about, So there's so much going on at such a fast pace. But I think what we wanted to bring it back to is that you have to just think about, well, what do you really believe in at this point? And on part of the course, we talked about one of the options in DeFi is well, it's not really is it DeFi or not, but if you don't want to play in sort of Ethereum and Solana and all these different spaces and NFTs and proper DeFi spaces, is crypto lending, Bitcoin lending. Now some of the platforms have crashed around our ears, but that could be a very real thing in my opinion. So if you believe in Bitcoin, that's something that should sit in your own personal portfolio, and that's good. That's definitely got a future, because I think the space is going to build around it. But I think you just at this point, it feels to me like we're at the point where everyone is going to look back in potentially 6 months, a year's time, and have the same level of regret as they did in 2017, when they were holding things they wish they hadn't held, and they hadn't really thought about what their real life circumstances and what they needed right now should the worst happen. I think back in 2017, we were in a very different space where people invested probably people definitely invested more than they could possibly afford to lose. And they did lose it all. But there wasn't a potential recession, inflation, war, and all these other things going on at the same time. So I think we're potentially at this point where things could crash. I'm not saying they will, but I think they potentially could. If people are invested and they haven't really thought about, okay, what do I actually need to see me through this situation? What happens if I lose my job? What happens if my business can't afford to keep the doors open, or there's bigger issues? What does it mean for me and my family personally in order to sort of help get through a period of time so I can recalibrate? And so I think that's the important thing. I think looking at all the fear and stuff, it definitely is fearful out there on so many different levels, and I'm generally concerned, but it's made me really think, what do I actually need to do about it, and take some positive steps?
Because that's kind of like the other side of it, isn't it? It's like, let's say that fear and the real application of fear is in essence crisis, it's chaos, it's all of these words. And like you said, never let a crisis go to waste. And I found the full saying. So we used to say, when there's blood on the streets, buy, which kind of has a darkness to it. But the real saying is, when there's blood on the streets, buy, even if the blood is your own. And that's the idea, that in that moment of chaos, even if you're the one that's going through it, don't let it go to waste. Do something about it at least, because at some point the chaos will subside, and you'll either be someone that can help other people, or you're going to be someone that requires help from other people. They're the only two kind of sides to it, really. So, because what you've just said there, Richard, I want to, Alan, if you don't mind, and I'm just using you, Alan, here as an archetype. Alan shared in the chat the answer to the question about what you would do, what you've got in reserves, and he says, I've got different shares, different amounts of shares, no income, no benefits, and nothing in fiat. If crypto disappeared, I'd sell some shares. And I asked about, well, practically speaking, how fast can you sell those shares, and what if the price of them tanked? And the reason I'm bringing this up, and we're segueing a little bit here from regulation, Rod, I do want to come back to it, but because of what Richard said, it's a nice little segue. And it's this idea that I've been 100% crypto now for, me and Christina have for, I don't know, a few years at least, and a couple of years. And I've been totally fine with that, really, really comfortable with it. But what changed for me was when we looked at things, when something bad happened in 2020, we were suddenly tight for the amount of fiat we needed. Every month we'd sell enough fiat to do our bank things that we needed to do and live wherever we were living at the time. And we decided from that point on that we were too tight. Our cash flow was too tight to cash flow from crypto out into banks and to live. So we extended our buffer of fiat to 3 months. And it was a number that we both agreed that 3 months was plenty. Even if everything went tits up in 3 months, that we can do a lot to replenish things. And since we did that, our life's calmer, substantially calmer. And at the same time, at one point, we were also in hyper as well, to Leone here, quite largely, and that covered plentiful, bountiful amounts of money that was coming in. And back then, hyper, a couple of years ago, was 90% of the passive income that we earned. So when you think about something there, that's like effectively a job. A lot of passive income comes from one platform. Then if that platform collapses, which hyper did, collapse, stop paying out, let's say, then that had a big impact on things. And so we really we spent a huge amount of time diversifying everything out. So now we have 7 different platforms, each bringing in a little bit. So I want to bring this back around, because what Richard just shared there is, what does your life need? Because it's okay having assets, gold or stocks or crypto or passive income or a job. All of these things are great. But if push came to shove and something bad occurred that you can't, a black swan in your own life, how would you deal with that? And it's about thinking about that today so that you can put the things in place. For example, Alan just used an example. I know we're joking, you'd rent a room, you'd busk or something, but it might be saying, hey, I'm going to make sure that I can sell those shares really fast. Because as soon as you get a piece of news, the speed at which you can act on that news is going to greatly affect how you might play that. I think one of the reasons, Richard, you might know this, one of the bankers got really, really rich when the English fought the Americans in the whatever that war was, in whatever year that was. Pardon me for not knowing that. But they had a rider watching the fight, and when America won, my God, I don't even know who won. When somebody won, the rider rode back, told him. He then started selling credit notes of the people that won. Everyone saw that, assumed that they'd lost. They all started selling. The price totally tanked, and when it hit floor bottom and the news came in that actually they'd won, everybody wanted to buy them back, and he owned them all. Now, obviously, that's a very nefarious thing to do. The reason I share that is because the speed at which you can implement on information will greatly affect what you can do about that, or how that might impact things.
I'm assuming that goes back a few hundred years, basically, or something like that.
It was a terrible story. I should definitely know that information. I did at one point.
Was that not Rothschild and Waterloo? I thought it was Rothschild and Waterloo.
Wow, Rothschild.
Could be. You keep talking, I'm going to find out.
Well, I think at the end of the day, all it shows is that manipulation in markets has been a thing for hundreds of years. So, it's human nature. Someone with the better information is going to try and screw everyone else at some point. And that's no different today. So it'd be interesting to know it is, but Rothschilds is a constant thread even today, basically, in terms of market manipulation and world manipulation, in other words, potentially. But I just want to speak to my experience as well, I guess. I remember when we did the course, and we talked about the financial steps, and one of the biggest things I know I got from it when I initially sort of did them, and then when we did them we read them out on the course that we did 6 months ago, whatever it was now, is that one of the biggest takeaways for some people is suddenly realizing that if you are exposed to, and it's called financial gambling, and the irony is that it's actually it's a little bit further up the steps than you would normally think, and financial gambling means that you're actually potentially doing okay financially. You're not feeling in terms of that you're short of money in any way. You can spend what you want and all the rest of it, but the critical thing is you're exposed to either one asset class or one income stream. So if you've got one income stream or one job, you're financially gambling. And that was like a massive thing for me. I was like, holy shit, it's like, I really need to sort of think about how to really diversify, because if that goes, and it might not be my fault, something could happen to me, then what's the reality of that situation? If that goes, I haven't got any assets, I'm going to have to sell them all. I might not have a home, all these different things. So it's like a real sort of slap in the face. I remember a few people on the course and they going, oh man, it's such a thing, because you fool yourself into thinking you're more secure than you actually are. So I want to bring that up, and I actually, having put those steps in place, managed to move up these sort of financial steps and put these markers in place for myself. But when it did go wrong and I fell back down those steps, I didn't fall all the way back down, because I'd done some of those things and I'd got the cash to sort of see me through enough period, as Daniel said, because I knew that I'd put the things in place in order to recalibrate and rebuild things back up from there. I just want to bring that up really because I think it's quite easy to sort of think, I've got assets, I've got stocks, but have you tried selling those stocks quickly? What happens if they crash? You know, the first thing, in my opinion, that's going to happen with the crypto market is stocks are going to crash before crypto crashes. So it's going to be highly correlated. So it's going to all go down at the same time. And what you're going to do when you look at your portfolio, even if you think you've hedged it and spread it, and go, oh shit, I've now got no assets and I've got no income. How am I going to pay my rent? You know, so I think it's just, you know, we can talk a bit more about maybe, you know, thinking about how do you kind of solidify that foundation.
Here's what we wouldn't want for the FLT community is some proverbial shit to hit the fan and someone that any of you guys, or even if it's someone that hasn't really joined a call, who says, I've been meaning to do that for ages. I can't express how many times I've been that person. And you just feel stupid. There's no other way around it. And that's why when the thing happened to me and Christina in 2020, 2021, it doesn't matter. It was the second time. And then we were like, we can't do this. And so we did what we needed to do. And even that was a painful exercise. Imagine saying you're going to sell shares at this price, and you end up selling them lower than you wish. But what it did was protect a lot of stuff. So we don't want that. And that's why I like it. We don't want to shout. We're never going to shout at people, but it's just this real push. The basics of those foundational steps is if you want to keep a hold, and again, just using this in archetype, Alan talked about shares. You want to keep a hold of shares, keep a hold of them. But can you put a stop loss in place? I don't even know if that's possible with shares. If these shares reach a certain price, automatically sell them. Are you set up on your mobile phone so that if you receive some news and you were like, I'm just going to sell a month's worth of living of shares, could you pick up your phone and sell them? How long would that take? Like we talk about practicing off ramp. There's a reason in the military they practice and practice and practice drills all the time. It's because when the shit hits the fan and you're under pressure and you're trying to click buttons, having done it a few times is like a memory muscle. So we tell people, go through the process of actually putting money into your bank, because when it comes to it and you're panicking, you know that I have 3 different ways I can get crypto into something I can spend. Otherwise, when it comes to it, you'll go to do it. It'll say you need to register. You'll go to register. You'll need your passport. You can't find your passport. You were meant to save it on your computer in a easy to find location, but now you don't have it. This is what occurs. So we're encouraging to go through that process. I think we can quickly. I want to come to Rod because I really wanted to come to Rod around regulation, and then in the last 10 minutes. If we can go through, I reckon we can do storage and USD Euro really quickly as well. Rod, what's your thoughts from that beginning bit and everything we talked about in and around storage? And seeing as you're going to be speaking, how safe do you feel from a protection, usually around finance, but we can expand it to anything else, that you're in a good space?
There was a hell of a lot there to unpack, and thanks for that, guys. Coming back to, I mean, one of the fundamental reasons that I got into the crypto space in the first place was because I absolutely detest the fact that big players, whales, major corporates can market manipulate. I hate that, and I want to do everything I can to try and prevent that from happening, because shared ownership, owning something in a wider scale, the people owning it, is something that everybody sort of has a right to, and it shouldn't be at the whim and fancy of very wealthy entities to be able to make or break us, you know, and I detest that. But I also see that unless crypto and DeFi is truly decentralized, then that's not really going to be achievable. And the recent move to proof of stake is slightly worrying as well, because I think that actually makes it easier for big to manipulate markets. But you know, that's just how I feel. How am I feeling? I'm incredibly lucky, and I recognise every day how incredibly lucky I am. I had a couple of great jobs. Salary, index-linked final salary pension plan. I own my right. I've got savings in fiat, and I've got a crypto market, and I may well move into gold and silver, but it's not there for me. I just loathe and detest the government so much that I don't want to give it to the government, and I don't want to see it slipping away at 10.1% per annum. So, do you want any more?
No, I understand it. I understand fully where you're coming from there, and I think again, Richard said earlier, like you kind of have to take some sort of stance on things to begin to even make sense. And your stance is that strong anti-institutional stance, and so there's more at stake from your perspective, because the thing you don't want to happen the most may end up inevitably happening. And I feel that fully, but I still think if you go back to that, don't let a crisis go to waste. That's in your world of the crisis, yeah, because it's directly affecting a value structure within yourself. So then maybe it's like, well, how do we find from that something that actually can be a byproduct that is a positive that will still meet my value structure of what I'm trying to do? Because these things, what you're going through there, if you just take your personality, your personal view out of it, contextually is the same for everybody. Like we're all going to have this is my value and this is occurring and it's going to go against it. But there's always a way. There's always that silver lining in every cloud, whatever cliche or metaphor you want to have. And I think that's the thing we have to find, is because you and me are not going to change these regulations. If the markets are manipulated, which they are, then contract law will be manipulated and all the other various things that are there to protect and help us. It's the illusion of control that society is given. So the question we have to say then is, how can we utilize this illusion of control towards our own benefit? And I've got all sorts of metaphors and films flocking into my brain right now, but they'd probably be really lost if I tried to explain them. So we'll just leave it at that. But I really do believe that with this regulation that's coming, because it is going to come, and we ain't going to like it as compared to the crypto that we've had, but there's always something in it that we can come out of it in a way that is far superior. And fundamentally, remember what we said at the beginning, this will be the greatest transference of wealth we've ever seen. Now, unfortunately, a lot of that is going to the 1%, already has done. So much of the quantitative easing is already there. But I know firsthand tons of people who did not have wealth and now do. And these are good people. That's good. Unfortunately, I know a lot of people that have got less money as well, but they like Richard said, have got one source of income, their job or their business. And this is why I think the more that we can have different streams of income and try and be as safe as we can, and then as these regulations come in, find a way to go, okay, that sounds really, I can feel my parts, don't want to say this, but how can I benefit from this? And I don't mean that from a selfish perspective, but as these masks are falling down, we have to put our mask on, because without it, we're dead. And then go, okay, what am I going to do about it? How can I help other people? And I think if we can do that collectively, individually and collectively, we will yield far greater results than if we just allow the regulations to wash over us and we do nothing about it. Yes, some of the cryptos we love will be gone or will die a death. But that is also needed. This space is so saturated with so many bad actors. We do need that. And I don't care how many privacy coins there are out there. Like, if Monero can just work its way through this and keep going, we need a Monero. Do I think governments will ban it? Logically, yes. If I was a government all about control and manipulation, would I want a coin that's completely private that people can use to spend money? No, I wouldn't. It doesn't help me.
I think, like, just to wrap that side of it up, I think I think we're at the period now where we really have to decide what we believe in and what we need and what we believe in. Because two things can happen from that. You can, like, there's the reason for us being here, me and Daniel here, is to try and raise some, enable people to be in a position where they're more financially stable and can move into a space where they can think, how do I want to give back and how do I want to contribute and do good things in the world? And so that selfishness, that sovereignty means that you be in a position to do that. But that does mean kind of, I think, not picking a side is wrong, but I was trying to hedge into different places. But I think it is about choosing about what you believe in. Because I think, Monero could still have a place in it, I think, but I think you never know that, what's that guy say? Always go to where go where you're treated best. And he's talking about like literally
Anderson.
Yeah, on Rebel Capitalist.
Live where they treat you the best.
Capitalist? Yeah, so it's kind of like
nomad capitalist.
Yeah, nomad capitalist. That's it. Yeah, and that's quite an extreme thing for people that are kind of have put down roots and all those sort of things. But I think ultimately that's the choice. But once you kind of raise yourself up, you can really start to think about about making a choice about moving if that's what you want to do, or I think as well, operating in a way that fulfills a part of you that is morally trying to get pulled in different directions. And we said it at the meetup last week. It's like someone said, well, maybe I just need to start asking for Bitcoin. If I believe in Bitcoin, I ask for Bitcoin from my invoices, and I encourage someone else to do it, and I spread it that way, because then I can create my own sub kind of community where we're kind of trading in this kind of thing, and what's happening affects it, but it's not the driving force, because we can begin to set up something ourselves. So I think we're at the point where it's kind of like believing in something, choosing something, and then taking action, basically.
Yeah, I would agree with that. So we don't have much time left, and I'm going to quickly just, because I would love to just get a couple of people's hearts moments and feedback. So for storage, was James asked about like most cost-effective storage and things. If you're going to bring cost-effectiveness into it, then I would probably say it needs a bit more techiness. Is what they call it, either a dumb phone or a glassed phone, or there's another word, but basically get an old phone, wipe it, clean it for completely, install any hot wallet of your choice, and never connect it to the internet. Obviously, you're going to need to if you're signing a transaction, but you use it as a dumb device. Don't update it, don't put anything on it or anything like that. They're super cheap to get hold of, and yeah, it's not going to be probably as safe as a ledger, but in terms of remember the old ratios rule, you want to put 20% effort in to get an 80% result, and that would achieve that cost-wise and effort-wise. If you're looking for something and you've got a little bit of money, Ledger is pretty much I would say it's the gold standard. Some would argue Trezor, but Trezors are a lot more money, I realized, than Ledgers. Like I hadn't realized until someone said, like, these are 300 euros.
Drop in price.
They've gone up a lot in price. So I think if you want a hardware device, you can't go wrong with Ledgers. I don't particularly like the interface. I do prefer Trezors, but it does more than the job both of them do. And I think the bricked devices or glass devices are also very, very good. And if you can't afford that, you don't have the techiness for that, install some software on your computer, but just make sure you have a modern enough computer and it's up to date. That's all I would say on hot wallets. So James, I don't know if you're still with us. I know you might be doing other things now or eating or something, but we cover all this in the course. I think storage is module 5 or 6 or 6 or 7, one of those 3. It's not 5, it's either 6 or 7. And we go through storage and the different things to look at. There's a lot of factors with it, but we cover probably too much in it. In simple answer, if you can afford it, buy a ledger. If you can't afford it, look at a hot wallet or a phone, something of that description.
I think you have to take into consideration how much you're holding and how important it is to you. You hold, that what is that meaningful enough amount for you to invest in something like that, basically, or go to those extra levels. But regardless, it's really good practice to get into and create those habits.
Yeah, completely. 1-to-1 euro dollar. What was it? What's the RPB man called?
Simon Dixon, yeah.
Simon Dixon. And he said, everybody that hates fiat, he said, don't forget the US dollar is the global reserve currency until it's not. And I remember it really impacted me when he said that, because I was like, oh, because I was very anti-dollar and everything. And he said, I still promote putting a certain amount of money into dollar. He said, and he said, why? Because no matter how you want to look at it, the US dollar is getting stronger and stronger and stronger and stronger and stronger. Is it being propped up? Maybe. Is it manipulated? Yes, in my opinion, and all these other factors. But if you want to put your money somewhere that's not crypto and is safe, the US dollar is still there. And I think what we're seeing today, and I don't know the driving factors behind it, but what we're seeing today is more of that occurring. Like the US dollar is strengthening massively against the euro. And I would guess it will logically be strengthening against other pairs as well. I know it's strengthened against the pound. We're now at 1.18 the other day, I think. 1.15. Yeah. So these are fiat. Well, this will obviously impact the whole global economy, because you're looking at global trade that will have massive, like a couple of pip movements in FX will have big impacts. In crypto, for me, being a non-USA person, it kind of works in my favor, because so much of my income as it's spread about comes in dollars. So it works for me. But then I feel for the people that are on the other side of the equation that maybe live in the US and don't have euros. But I mean, ultimately, Jack, are you saying, how much does this affect crypto? Is that what you were, your question was leading towards?
You have to say that again, mate. You broke up a little bit there.
Jack, just before because we only got long left, were you saying, does this strengthening of the dollar against the euro affect crypto?
Yeah.
Do you know what? I don't know. I'm not even skilled enough to really understand that. This is a part of finance that's never been my little experience.
I think it depends in how you. I mean, like talking about Simon Dix again. One thing he said was it's the reserve currency until it's not. The other thing he said is think in dollars. So that's what I've done for a very long time.
Yeah.
For that reason, because it's the reserve currency. So it really only affects you if you're trying to flip between the two. So if you bought in pounds and you want to, and it depends how you're exchanging. Basically, if you're exchanging between the two things, or if you're valuing them, if you bought some crypto or any sort of asset in pounds, and you come back to pounds, you haven't really been massively affected on that level anyway. Literally in terms of how it affects you, but I think on a wider scale, there's so much going on with the dollar and lots of different currencies and the BRICS nations and all that kind of stuff at the moment. But in terms of how it relates to you, it really depends on how you're earning and how you're spending.
This comes back to that first question, though. How safe are you? Like, thinking of these black swan events, global, local, and personal, things that black swan being things you just can't predict. How well is all this stuff you're doing in this crypto world and assets and all of this fancy, sexy talk, how does that translate and relate to your life? And if you are an international person, you travel or all these things, then having funds in different accounts should be part of your thinking process. I know it is for me and Christina. We don't do a lot of it, but that's because we made the decision that we'd have dollars as our, I suppose, life reserve currency. So we live in dollars and convert everything to whatever currency we're using, which means at the minute anyway, we're starting with the strongest currency. So we end up with more bang for our buck, no pun intended. I think really that's what we wanted to have. There's a golden thread on this call. It's coming back to that. How safe am I? What do I need in my life to live? And if something bad occurred, global, local, or personal, am I protected against that? And so this might be useful for you with the dollar, with the one-to-one, the euro and the dollar. It might be irrelevant. So I think it's a very personal thing, unique to each person's case.
Yeah.
No, that's great. Yeah, that's perfect. Thanks for talking about it.
No worries. All right. I think we're going to wrap it up there. Does anybody, anyone have got anything they want to share before we bring it to a close? I know we've been very, very fast on this. Rod, I appreciate you having thoughts after, like you said, a lot to unpack. Oh, good.
There's rapid fire, that one.
I know. Cool. Well, then I would love anyone in particular. I'd love it if it was James, because it's his first call, but I know you're busy with life. Leon is left. If anyone's got any ahas, anything that from this call, they were like, you know what, that was really useful. Something I'm going to take away from this call and ponder or implement. Any takers? Don't leave us hanging. I'll pick on someone.
I've got something.
Go for it, Jack.
It was when you was going back to, again, as you just discussed, on safety, and then realizing the fact of now diversifying your income so then you're more sustainable within your life, especially if you're keeping yourself at the same amount of money you have per month or lifestyle. At least then if something goes to pot like your job, you're not too reliant or stressed as to thinking, well, that's it now, I'm done, where you can fall back into other things.
Perfect. Thank you very much for that, man. And then to put it back onto you, do you already have thoughts in your mind about how you could maybe implement that in your life?
Yeah, so that would be like, as again, I can invest into stocks or shares, into crypto or other investment vehicles. So then now I can start getting a bit of cash flow or hold some assets in which I can sell at any point if needed.
Perfect. Perfect. Thank you very much for that, Jack. Really appreciate you sharing that. Rich, any final thoughts from yourself?
No, thank you all for being here. But I just urge everyone. I think one of the best things I will say this. I think something that's seriously good to practice is acting broke. How broke can you actually act and still think my life's all right? You know, I don't need to buy Starbucks. I don't need to go and get that takeaway. I don't need this stuff. I can reduce my outgoings, because practicing that is believe me, is a seriously good tool to have in your backpack. I urge anyone to do that. I think Tim Ferriss once said, like, every kind of month he wears the same clothes for a month basically and only eats lentils, and he's like a multi-millionaire investor and you get lots of different income streams, but he goes through that process to try and practice this stoic kind of philosophy around.
Does he have a lot of flatulence?
Right? So there's that.
Sorry, I couldn't help it.
But that's extreme. You don't have to necessarily do that, but part of that process, I think, is just like we can share after all the different tools that we did on the course, and is to go through and I do it all the time, is re-go through how much am I spending, how much can I like cut back on, how much can I save, is that necessary? You don't want to make life boring unnecessarily, but I think recognizing that and just really kind of like understanding where you are and where will help you understand where you need to go and the things you need to do. And all we're trying to do here is kind of really raise awareness of where you are, of your circumstances, and be able to take action. That's the main thing. So your information is power at that point. So I will share the link to the spreadsheet we put together for the crypto course after, and you can use some of those resources in there. If anyone needs help with them, reach out to us. But I urge everyone to kind of act broke and kind of just raise that awareness of where they are. Yeah, the unconscious spending, basically. That's what we talked about a lot.
Super. Well, let's leave it at that. Thank you, everyone, for coming. Really good to see some faces that we met in person the other week. I hope you've enjoyed everything. If you're watching this back, please let us know what your golden nuggets are for yourself and what. Have I got lost? Unstable again. Obviously, I'm not meant to say anything. So yeah, goodbye, everybody.
Yeah.
Take care.
Right. Thank you all for being here. Thank you for your contributions. And bye.
Thanks, guys.